Hello everyone, this is Sleepless Authoress here. Greetings from the great outdoors. What I wanted to make a video about was just talking about my experience a little bit as an Instapoet and why I decided to become one. When I first started out, it was really interesting because I came from kind of a pedigree background, you could say. So I'm an English major, I have a bachelor's degree in literature. But before I started posting on Instagram, I actually had gotten about, I think 11 or 12 publications in small literary journals, really small ones, but hey, it's something to put on the resume. So it was interesting because a lot of the people who supported me in pursuing traditional publishing were kind of like, hey, Lee, why are you posting on Instagram now? And what I kind of would tell them is, well, I posted my work online when I was a developing poet, back when I was like a teenager just writing absolutely terrible poetry. So it's not that unusual for me, to be active on social media. But then also, once I did start posting a lot on Instagram, I kind of started seeing a different mindset emerging from other people. So people then who see that you are an Instapoet and post your work on Instagram, they're kind of like, hey, why aren't you doing traditional publishing? There were even a few contests and so on that I saw and submitted to that were focused on Instapoets and looking for submissions from Instapoets. And one of the questions, and this happened in more than one spot, was why are you posting on Instagram? Why aren't you doing like literary journals? And for me, it was just such a funny question because I was like, well, I did come from that traditional background. I have been published before in a few tiny journals. But what I really wanted was to find a community again. And I'm kind of shocked, honestly, like how much, how many poets there are on Instagram, how many people are sharing their thoughts, and how people are also bringing that visual element to it. The thing that kind of pushed me to make the decision and decide to go with posting on Instagram was that for a while, like my background's been all over the place as I've tried to develop my career as a writer and an editor. I worked in IT at one point. That's a story for another day. But there I was really working on like my tech skills, I was learning a lot of software, and then later on in a different position, in a completely different place, I was doing a lot of social media management. And I was growing the following of the organization pretty well, and it kind of made me ask myself like, hey, I'm doing all this work, putting all this effort in for someone else, I should really be kind of like doing this for myself and doing it to like enrich my writing and also become active in a community again. It's a lot of work to take part in one. Like, it takes a good amount of time to build a following, to post a lot, to interact with people a lot, and do it in like an authentic way where like you're actually reading their work and commenting on it. But I'm just like so thrilled and shocked with how much of that there is on Instagram. The other big thing for me was that since I do have like some design experience and I like to play around in Photoshop, it really gave me a good opportunity to kind of combine both of my skill sets. So here we have the writer, here we have the designer. On Instagram, I finally have the chance to kind of bring those two things together. It's not like in order to post my poetry, I'm just putting in plain text, maybe spicing it up with a little HTML. Like with that image format, it really lets you come up to a whole new level of design and just finding different ways to enhance your poetry. So that part of it I've really enjoyed and found super fun. But there's still like a lot of stigmatism, I feel like. There's still a lot of people who are like, oh, why are you doing so much just to be read online for free? Like, are people really appreciating it? Personally, I would say yes. I also think it's a great way to promote your work. Personally, I am hoping to do a poetry collection. I have one that I'm in the midst of editing that I hope to publish in the somewhat near future if I'm lucky, and building an audience and kind of having people who are interested in my work before I come out with a book. Even if it's not a big group of people, it can only help in the long run. So whenever I have those people who just kind of like shake their heads and wonder why Instagram, why poetry on Instagram, I just will kind of explain all of this to them. Another thing that's really funny is that the whole Instapoet thing, like if you just Google that term, you get some really funny articles about people commenting like, oh yes, it's all 20-something girls posting poetry. And stuff like, oh, it's the millennials and their avocado toasts posting poetry online. But even though it has that reputation of being something that's new and trendy, I do really feel like it's an awesome future and an awesome next step for poetry. Like, poetry has fallen out of fashion in so many ways compared to the popularity it used to have. But I feel like with Instagram, like Instagram's a platform originally for images. It's very common with so many different age groups and so many different people from all over the world that it's kind of breathing a new breath of life into poetry. There's actually one tag that's really huge called "Poetry is Not Dead." And if you're posting on Instagram, you're probably familiar with it. But when I first started out, I was like, wow, that's really cool. Like, it's kind of, the community is self-aware that poetry is an art and a craft that has fallen out of fashion a bit, but can come back. So that was a very cool thing for me to see as well. One of my concluding thoughts is that I wish there could be a little bit more interconnectedness between the Instapoet community and the traditional literary journal poet publishing community. There's no reason that people can't do both. In fact, I think it's a great benefit if you can do both. And even for me, since I've started posting on Instagram, I haven't completely stopped submitting to literary journals either. I still have a few batches of poems that I'm sending out to different journals, trying to, keep that traditional publishing end of myself going. But there's just no reason that people can't do both, and there's no reason that the communities have to be on separate islands so super far apart. They can come together. It doesn't have to be two completely separate crafts almost. And people don't have to either see you as an Instapoet or a traditional poet. You can be both. There's no reason not to be both. With that said, I think that about sums up most of my thoughts and the method to my madness for joining the whole Instapoet trend. If you would like to follow my work, I have the same name on there, Sleepless Authoress, and I'd love to read some of your work too. Have an awesome day. Keep writing.